If I take that bone, push it into that socket, and then grind, if there's a labrum tear there, I'm probably going to make it upset, right? That's the mechanism that we're working with here, okay? So the crank test is basically, and it's more easily done laying down, but if you can control the patient and the patient's arm, it'll work out just fine this way. So you're going to take him to about 120 degrees of elevation in the scapular plane. He's going to give me his arm. Just let your arm relax. I'm going to push the arm into the socket and then internally and externally rotate it. Okay? The reason I'm doing it in the scapular plane is that's the best plane for me to get the best contact with the humerus and the glenoid fossa. Okay? I suppose I could probably try to do it back here, but then I'm like at 90 degrees, but I'm probably going to get more of the posterior labrum as opposed to the anterior. If I want to get the whole thing, take it into the scapular plane, compress, and internally and externally rotate to whatever degree you find necessary, right? You guys want to try that one? Or you want to keep chugging along here?
Keep chugging.
You good? Okay. Anterior apprehension, another one you can do seated or laying down. A lot of people prefer to do it laying down. Basically what I'm going to do is take them to 90 and 90 and then stabilize back here, maybe even push forward and then try to take him into external rotation. Now, I need to be trying to watch his face to see if I'm creating that apprehensive look.
Sure did.
Or if he's trying to, if he wants to fight me by resisting, and he did both. Like he got some apprehension and he wanted to fight me by trying to not let me take that back there, okay? The second part of this test is he's gonna lay face up, and that's why sometimes I prefer to do this test face up if I know that I'm gonna be ended up doing this other test. So that anterior apprehension test, I could do same thing here. I'll put my hand under the shoulder and lift it up a little bit before I take him into external rotation. The relocation test, I'm going to take my hand, put it right on the front of his shoulder, press down, and then take him back into external rotation. Okay? He didn't get the apprehension that time. How did it feel? Stabilized, comfortable?
Yeah.
Which is basically a positive that he's definitely got some anterior apprehension. He's got some anterior laxity of the shoulder because apprehension test was positive and the relocation test was positive, which means it got better. So when I push it down and it gets better, that's positive that there's something going on there, okay? Anterior laxity. The load and shift, go ahead and sit up for me again. That's a pretty simple one. You're basically just gonna tack down the clavicle, you're gonna tack down the scapula to each other, and then you're just gonna kind of shift the humerus back and forth. If you've got small hands and big shoulders, that's probably gonna be a difficult one to do. You know, not necessarily my favorite, but it's part of this this cluster. The sulcus sign, his shirt would be off or his shoulder would be exposed. All I'm going to do is basically pull down on his humerus to see if I create a gap, again implying that there's some laxity and some weakness. It doesn't tell me where the tear is, it just tells me that there is a tear. Because that tear can be just about anywhere. If he's got a history of dislocation, the tear could actually be up in the axilla. Okay? If he's an overhead athlete, the tear could actually be more slap oriented, but he's going to have a different set of symptoms that go along with that too. Okay, so those are the clusters for just a general labral tear. Okay, now we have clusters that are specifically for slap tears. Okay, so we have compression rotation. Raj, go ahead and lay face up for me again. Don't fall asleep. So compression rotation is I'm going to take him to about 90 degrees here. I'm going to press the humerus into the scapula and then just rotate back and forth. I'm feeling for grinding, clunking, or pain, specifically up here in the front of the shoulder that implies that there's a tear of the superior portion of the labrum. Biceps load test 2 down at the bottom is I'm going to take him into external rotation. I'm going to ask him to resist my attempt to pull his hand away from his face. So I'm going to stabilize him here. I'm going to pull your hand away. Don't let me. If I pull away and it's weak or he gets pain, again, up at the top of the shoulder, it may imply that he's got a slap tear. Okay? O'Brien's test is really pretty simple. We're going to start with his hand fully internally rotated and take him to about 10 degrees of adduction. Okay? I'm going to press down. Don't let me. He says, ow. I say, where? He points right to the top of his shoulder. okay? Then I'm going to take his hand and flip it all the way over. I'm going to press down again, don't let me. He's like, that didn't hurt. That again now is positive for a possible slap tear, okay? Jurgensen's is a pretty easy one. Go ahead and stand up for me. Okay, I'm going to attempt his effort to supinate and externally rotate his arm at the same time. Okay, so which means I'm going to ask him to do this. He's going to start with his palm down, and I'm going to ask him to flip his hand over and try to move his arm away from his body, and I'm going to resist his attempt to do that. Now, I will usually stabilize up here at the shoulder, okay, or actually you're supposed to put a thumb directly over top of that groove there because you're trying to feel if the tendon is popping out of the groove. So I'm going to have him try to turn his hand over and push into my hand at the same time, and I'm going to let him do it, but I'm going to resist his attempt. So try to take the arm away from the body. And I'm feeling to see if I can pick up a clunk or a click or a pop as the tendon jumps out of that humeral groove, right? Have I got them all? No, speeds. So the last one here, speeds. Hand is up in the front. He's going to hold that there. I'm going to press down on your arm. Don't let me. Okay? If he's like, yeah, I get a ton of pain right there, again, could be indicative that there is something there. So the cluster for this one is you pick 2 from the high sensitivity.